Welcome to episode 34 of Construction Nation. This is Sue Dyer, your host of Construction Dream Team, where I interview industry leaders and experts so you can learn about the people side of construction and build your construction dream team based on OPE, other people's experiences. You shouldn't have to suffer every day. You can actually learn from others and maybe shorten some of your suffering at least. So I'm glad you're here today with us. And for the first time, I just want to tell you that we are doing a beta test to offer our construction scorecards to projects other than the ones that we're working on. So this is going to last between now and September 17th. So if you want to be a part of this beta test, please give me contact me at sue@constructiondreamteam.com. I do believe that this is a very powerful tool. Other people are telling me that, and they want to be able to utilize it. So we're going to be doing some beta testing, trying some different ways to use the scorecard. So please contact me at sue@constructiondreamteam.com if you would like to have a scorecard on your project. Okay, today we are really privileged to have our guest today. I have worked with Kristin for, a decade or so now. And she is a really, really talented project manager for a $2.4 billion project that is coming close to having its first big milestone where there's going to be an opening. And Kristin Allen is here with me. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And she is the project manager for Terminal 1, Boarding Area B at San Francisco International Airport. And as I mentioned, this is a pretty large project. $2.4 billion is pretty large. And they are working on this project, and it will have the first opening of 9 gates coming up here this summer. So she's been working on it for quite a long time, all the way through planning, design, construction, and now opening and activation. So she's got lots of insights for us to share. And I really would like to share with you a little bit more about Kristin, just so you understand that she is responsible for the capital improvement project that we're talking about. And the focus on the project is elevating the guest experience while providing a facility that is socially and economically and environmentally sustainable. And I will tell you, they really take that very seriously, and some of the creative things that have happened are pretty amazing. I hear that all the time from the architects, like, man, I never knew that was even possible. So there's a lot of creative things that are occurring. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming and being part of Construction Dream Team. So tell us about how you became the project manager at SFO for such the biggest project that they've ever done.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here, Sue. So my journey has been a long one. I have over 20 years of experience at SFO. Growing up, I always had an affinity for math and problem solving, so that led me into a college degree of civil engineering. The summer before I graduated college, I was fortunate to get an internship at San Francisco Airport and then given an opportunity to return once upon graduation. So the airport has a very robust architecture, engineering, and construction services group that handles a major part of the infrastructure projects at the airport. So in-house design, in-house project management, in-house construction management. So I was able to start there as a designer, and a few years into my career, I obtained my professional license, and along the way got to experience many parts of the airport, got a great baseline for institutional knowledge of how the airport works, of the different departments, and was able to build relationships across the airport with all of my colleagues. So that was a great opportunity for me to grow in my career. And it was funny because when I was just a design engineer, I thought, oh my gosh, I do not want to be a project manager. I looked at what the project managers were doing, and they had to write reports and they had to negotiate contracts and do all these things. And I thought, oh my gosh, I never want to do that. I just want to be an engineer for the rest of my life. And then an opportunity came forward to manage a project, and it was a small project, and it was a good fit for me, and I kind of cut my teeth there and realized I really like this, and I don't want to go back to design. So throughout my career, I got to experience so many parts of this industry, from planning the projects to securing the funding to putting a RFP out on the streets, to then managing the design, managing the construction and the closeout and the activation on smaller scales, and slowly bigger and bigger scales of projects. So I did that for a number of years, and then was assigned the department head for the civil engineering group at the airport. So I did that for a couple more years. And then in 2013, I was asked to work on the Terminal 1 program. And that was a really exciting time for me, because I looked at that program for a while as it was developing, and I thought that would be a great thing to work on. So it really worked out well for me. I was really happy that I got to be a part of this major construction at the airport, that and size of projects that haven't happened. So when I first came over to the Terminal 1 program, I was assigned the enabling projects. So I was in charge of moving all the bits and pieces out of the way so we could build these very large facilities. So that's how I entered into where I am now.
Well, we're glad you did, and that you were there and continued to learn along the way, because I think it's important for listeners to realize that it's never a straight path. It's like, you do some of this, you do some of that, opportunities occur, and sometimes the opportunities you don't even realize are an opportunity until they're there. So I know right now you're leading a team of teams. There's like 1,000 people out there working on this project. And right now they're working really crazy because they're getting ready for the activation and all the simulations. So what do you think is your greatest strength as a leader?
Well, considering, as you mentioned, this is an incredibly large project, and it's not just a project, it's actually two really large design build teams. And that 1,000 people easily every day participating in this project. So we realized early on at the airport that we needed to provide the right environment for everyone to be successful. So resulting from that was our co-location space, which we call our big room. And it's actually a building inside of a building. So we've built a 30,000 square foot offices for our teams within a 60,000 square foot aircraft hangar. And we have up to 250 people on any given day working in there. And it's been a great way to foster and encourage our collaborative environment. So for me, it's a great way to interact with the team and they recognize who I am. We can have face-to-face conversations and just really get to know everybody. And by being in front of all the people, we get to lead by example. We get to set the tone. And I think that's what has made this successful, is the fact that we do get to be a part of it. Everyone knows who we are. They see us every day. We have to lead by example. We have to walk the walk and talk the talk and be what we're saying. We want them to be, we have to be. So sometimes we have to be the first ones to step up and take lead and set the parameters for everyone to work within.
Yeah, that's the big room is pretty amazing, and you can't tell kind of who works for whom in the whole thing. It's just you walk in as one big group of people, and it does rotate in and out, but it's pretty amazing. So it's so unusual to have a project that's this size broken into two parts. So it's T1C and boarding area B. You're in charge of both of them, and each one has a different design builder. How does that work?
It works quite well, actually, which, it was always a concern. How are we going to integrate these teams? And I think it starts with us as the project management team. We integrated ourselves. We have an integrated team across both of the projects. So we are seen as one entity. And that helps our two teams see these two contracts as one project. So the boarding area B project has the majority of the boarding area. Terminal 1 Center has the majority of the terminal, but there are so many touch points throughout. And we have our Mason-Dixon line, as we call it, our CJ line, our grid line, that is where the two projects touch physically, but they touch in so many ways with infrastructure, with schedule, all the different parts, logistics, site access. So it's a constant coordination with the teams. And we've done a number of things to help facilitate this. Number one, we call it one building, one team. So there is no two projects. We are actually building one building. It just happens to be two different contractors building them. So the both teams brought the right people to the table. And that's a big part of it, is people need to buy into this philosophy. They might not at first, but then they need to learn it and live it with us. And if they don't, then you can't be afraid to say, you know what, you're not the right fit for this project, and move on and find someone who is, because that will be very detrimental to your team if you don't manage through that.
So if someone didn't fit, you would probably get them off the bus?
Yes. Yeah, we had to. And it's an uncomfortable thing for everybody, but it is the best thing to do for the project. We also instituted, in our big room, we have a governance committee where we talk about rules of engagement and how we communicate face-to-face first, email second. So we try to set a structure that facilitates this collaboration and the feeling of one team. We have a builder-to-builder meeting every week where we bring both leadership of both teams in with the airport project management team, and we discuss common issues and touch points and making sure we're all on the same page, alignment on different things. So that's been a big part of that. We've also established, as you mentioned, we have one of our big openings coming up this summer in July, our 9-gate opening, as we call it, where we open 9 gates of our new boarding area and our new checkpoint, which is on the terminal side of the project. And we instituted a memorandum of understanding between the two teams regarding all the infrastructure needed. So the majority of the infrastructure to support the boarding area comes through the terminal. So everything that feeds from power to data all comes through the terminal. So we needed to make sure all those touch points were connected. So we got the two design builders together, and they actually formed this group that developed this memorandum of understanding and had agreements as to dates of delivery of different aspects. And they have hit all of those through continuous collaboration, continuous communication. And that's what's really facilitated and allowed us to be on schedule for this summer's opening.
As I recall, when we had some problems with some getting enough people of certain trade, they even kind of traded trades.
Yes, yeah, they did. They coordinated activities. We do have some of the same subcontractors between the two projects, and there was a lot of discussion. Okay, well, you know what? If they stayed on your site 2 weeks longer, we can live with that, so they can get that done for you, and then we can adjust our project to meet that. So there was a lot of logistical collaboration happening from the field up. And that's one of the great parts about these two teams, is that problems are being resolved at the level they should be. So we find out about it as a report out, not as an issue. So we talked about this, we've got this coordinated. Wonderful. We don't have to be in the middle of that. So
yeah, pretty awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the two projects, just maybe some overview of them.
Sure. So overall, between the two projects, it's about 1.2 million square feet. We've got a robust concessions program coming in with a lot of local offerings from retail and food and beverage. Brand new baggage handling system, the first of its kind in the United States. It's a containerized system that it allows for better tracking and management of the bags, and also is incredibly more efficient from an energy and a maintenance perspective. We've got consolidated checkpoints. One of the other things we're very proud of is just our sustainability practices we've enacted on these projects. So This building will use about a third of the power of our traditional terminal this size. So, and that's through a number of different measures that the two teams collaborated on, our designers collaborated on to get us there. In addition, they also didn't just focus on energy savings in our sustainability, they also focused on human health. So from air filtration to materials used, they really pushed the industry in changing their manufacturing process, changing the materials they've used. Our furniture doesn't contain fire retardant material, which is a great thing because there's not the off-gassing, there's not all those other issues. And that was a hard thing to get to happen, but all of our partners in the industry came on board with us and they helped to make that happen.
That's totally awesome. So I know that many projects, you're utilizing a process of design build called progressive design build. And I've seen a lot of projects struggle with getting to their GMP. And I hear from people that you made that happen. So tell us about how did you successfully negotiate the GMP, not only for one, but for both, and that they did it together?
Yeah, that was a very intensive few months for our team, but it was well worth the effort. So we entered into our final negotiations for our GMP. We do have a progressive GMP program at San Francisco, so we do progressively award trade packages and sets that come with allowances and reserve dollars. Reserves are used by the contractor to handle any scope gaps, acceleration, anything they need to do to deliver the system and project the way it was intended to be delivered. And so it's almost like a layer cake, someone called it, where you progressively add in a new GMP set and it just keeps stacking the total of the GMP. And then when you get to the end to negotiate the final GMP, that's where it's more about unknowns. So all along is trade packages that were awarded to contractors. And when we get down to the end to finalize the final GMP, you have trade packages that haven't been awarded, that haven't gone out to bid yet. You've got pending change orders, you've got trends, and all these things that are happening that you need to come to resolution on to package up into a final GMP. We typically start this final GMP process when we're about 85 to 90% bought out on our projects. So once we got there, we started this process, and I think the most important and the best thing we did at the beginning of it was come up with a plan. We had a commitment from our builders on how they were going to talk to their subs, what dates things were going to happen. We also took a look at our pending change orders, our trends. We categorized them. We got all the easy ones off first, got those negotiated out, and gave deadlines for the different categories of when we would finish. And we dedicated the time. It takes a lot of time. We had day-long meetings. We moved everything else around to get this done because this was so important for our team to know and to have this certainty in the project. The uncertainty, it affects people's production, it affects their efficiency. We don't know when we're going to, finalize this dollar. We don't know what's going on with that. This wraps it all up and people can just do their job and not worry about this anymore. So that was the key part, is coming to the meetings with a purpose, having an agenda for the meetings, knowing what we wanted to accomplish week over week, and getting to the end. And I'll tell you, there were some things at the end we weren't in alignment on, which is normal. I mean, that's going to happen. You have to be prepared for that. But we just sat in a room right at the end and we said, okay, what are we not in alignment on? We had this list and it was only a handful of things, but we were able to just talk through it. You think it's 100,000. I think it's 50,000. Let's put 75,000 in and move on. This is too big and there's too many things riding on this to worry about this or that. And it's going to be what it's going to be when it's done. So that was the key, is that we all felt the people in the room were empowered to make those decisions. If they were not empowered to make those decisions, this would have been a complete waste of time.
Yeah, and I see also with the progressive design build, you are not creating your GMP until you know a lot.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of GMPs happen at the end of design. And so you're guessing.
Correct. And this process seems to work for everybody. It seems to be fair to everybody. We can move along, keep things going. Prices should be more accurate because we know what things actually are costing. We have cost certainty, such a high level of cost certainty on things. So it makes the final negotiations much easier. The other thing we tried to make sure we did was just not leave anything hanging through the life. Because we were, 2 years into construction by the time we got to these final GMPs. And along the way, we were really careful to not let things linger. Wrap things up as they came up. Don't wait and say, we'll deal with that later. That's just a recipe for disaster.
So how do you figure out how to budget? And how do you figure out what kind of contingency to put in?
That's a tough one, especially in this market right now. It's challenging. The market is so hot. Prices are at times higher than you think they would be. They also, contractors have the risk of not getting resources here because of this. So there's dollars associated with that they're putting into their bids that it's really hard to quantify. So that's a tough question. But I think you just look at history, you look at where we are and what has happened along the way. You look at other projects. What did they do? How much were they carrying in contingency? Considering the fact we were already in this for a few years that we got to this point, we had an opportunity to look at the history of our own project also. What have we spent on our contingencies? What have we used them on? And we had a better idea of how to project out for the remaining scope because of that. And just this, we've built a really strong relationship with our design build teams. And that's a huge part of it because they know more about construction than we know. They know more about the prices than we know. And there's a trust there that you have to have in those dialogues, and leaning on people's expertise and understanding what their knowledge base is and utilizing that is a big part of it.
I know that you use a target budget process. How does that help you get to the GMP?
So it's an interesting thing to bring up because the Terminal 1 program in itself makes up a third of our $7 billion capital program at SFO, and we're bookending that program. We're one of the first projects to start, and we're going to be one of the last ones to finish within that program. So we've been somewhat the guinea pigs for a lot of things because we embarked on this huge capital program that we hadn't done in a number of years since when we built International Terminal almost 20 years ago. So a lot of things changed. Our business processes, our operational processes, a lot of things changed along the way. So when we started this and we had our programming, we had what we called our barn raising, where we brought our stakeholders in and with our design teams and said, what are your biggest and greatest and craziest and best ideas for this project? Well, we got all of those, but they didn't always fit within our budget. So I think we learned a lot in how we messaged that. And I think subsequent projects got the advantage of understanding what we struggled with, because we left our programming phase with a project that was starting to be designed to a budget that we couldn't afford. So we had to, just take a step back and go, ooh, let's rethink this. We didn't, we should have put in some other measures along the way to control this a little bit. So we had a series of budget reconciliation exercises over the course of a year and a half to get to a point where we really settled in on what this should be, what is in the scope, what is not in the scope. We also at SFO have what we call the below the line list. And on that below the line list, we carry items that we would like to have in the project that maybe aren't necessary for the project, or maybe they're future needs. And we have the option at a later date to bring them in. So we prepare for those items. We start a design, we protect a right of way or whatever it might be to bring this piece or element of the building in at a later time, but we hold it off to the side. And we wait, and as we progress through, do we have enough money? Can we now bring it above the line, as we call it, and incorporate it into our project? So that's one of the tools we use to manage to our budget is this below the line list with, and it is a tough thing because it's a stakeholder driven exercise. Our stakeholders are incredibly important to us, and we're building this for them. So we need to make sure they can operate and maintain it and give them all the things that are necessary to do that, and give them as many as the like to haves as we can. But they need to participate at the table with us about, okay, if you had to give up one thing, what would it be? And then we work with them to say, okay, we're going to move that below the line. We haven't given up on it, but we're holding it aside for now.
Now, so listen to this, listeners. I think this is a brilliant concept that doesn't happen on almost any projects that I see, where your stakeholders, you ask them what they want, and you can plan for it, but it may be below the line. And then all the stakeholders together get to help decide, well, we have this much money. We have $10 to spend. We have $100 worth of wants. What's the $10 that will get us the farthest in our mission as an airport, or whatever your facility is? It's a pretty brilliant way of operating. It is not easy though, but it is. Everyone's happy at the end. Awesome. So what do you think others can do to make sure their projects complete within their GMP? And what role do you think the team plays? I just see so many times people are trying on a different type of methodology for delivering their project, and it has a GMP, whether it's CMGC, design build, and they have to get to the GMP, and it seems that is just creates so much heartburn. Maybe it's even a bonfire.
Well, I think one of the things is to make sure you do have the proper contingencies and reserves to deal with things that come up along the way. And it is a team effort because the problems are the project's problems. They're not the contractor's problems, and they're not the owner's problems. They're the project's problems. And that mindset is sometimes difficult to really embrace for a lot of people. But I think we've done a good job of getting there with our teams, and that what can we do to help our costs? And sometimes the best ideas come from the builders, and we need to be open to those ideas, and they need to be willing to bring them forward. And it's about creating that environment that they're comfortable doing that.
So tell us a little bit about the two projects, and you have two design builders and one owner, and all the systems have to flow together. And I know there's also all the aesthetics have to flow together. It can't look like you're in two different buildings. How do you create an integrated team for this size of project with this much complexity?
It's challenging, and we're not 100% there, and I don't think we'll ever be 100% there. But you have to keep your eyes open to things that seem to be going down a path that's out of alignment. And we've done an excellent job in many, many areas of making sure we're in alignment on all those bits and pieces with the two teams. And we have, when you count through the sub-consultants and the design, we have over 30 design teams, on our projects. So that's a lot of people. And it's a lot of communication that have happened. Our big room, our co-location space is a large part of that. But even then, it doesn't always work. Sometimes things get missed. So what happens when they get missed? How do you react to that? And that's a big part of it. Recently, you were just talking about the aesthetics. We just had a miss on one of the aesthetics that came up early enough that we were able to say something's not right here. So from the project management side, we were noticing one thing on one side and a different thing on the other side that should have been the same. So we queried each of the teams individually, and they seemed to not know about this. So we said, you guys need to meet. So they did. They had a meeting, and I remember walking through the big room. I was going to another meeting, and this meeting was taking place at a big round table in the middle, and it was too deep. So there was people sitting around the table and people standing behind them. There was probably 15, 20 people. And I heard, as I walked by, "Oh, you guys are doing what? Oh, I didn't know you were doing that."
Famous last words.
Yeah. And something in me just went, "Oh, this is so great," because it's a long project, and there are many, people get tunnel vision on their scope and their responsibilities, and just sometimes just taking a step back and going, just self-checking, wait a minute, are we still going down we talked about this 2 years ago, and things diverge over the course of 2 years. So I think it kind of just brought everyone back to that thought, okay, what else are we missing? And then they started looking around, what else? Are we missing anything else? So in some ways it was a good thing, because we caught it early enough to do something about, and then it's helping to evaluate what other things might be out there, but it's also makes you a little nervous about what else did we miss. And we're going to miss stuff, but the best part about this team is we miss it together, and then we put it back together. So,
Well, I know SFO has been very committed for 20 years to structured collaborative partnering. Mm-hmm. So what do you think is the effect of structured collaborative partnering on a project of this size and magnitude?
Wow. I don't know how else we would do it. The principles of escalation ladder about, resolving things at the appropriate level, about leadership coming from anybody on the team. This project's too big to wait for the 3-4 people in the highest positions on the different teams to tell people what to do. They have to figure it out, and they have to be given the tools and resources and support to do that. And so without that sort of structure and then having the partnering sessions themselves where people can bring up ideas, the scorecards where people can anonymously voice concerns that maybe they're not comfortable in other formats, is incredibly important for us. And I think, one of the things I say is, we have a 1-hour partnering session a month, and I say, partnering is not a 1-hour session a month. It is a way of life. And we have to look at it that way. And every day we have to deploy those principles for our success.
Yeah, it's a way of living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm sure that in your career, not everything has gone exactly as you had hoped it would. So tell us a little bit about a big challenge you had, and take us back to that worst moment and share with us what that was and what you did.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is, as I mentioned earlier, I was assigned to the Terminal 1 program in 2013. And at that time, I was in charge of the enabling projects, and I hadn't been assigned the larger design build projects. And in early 2014, me and another colleague were called in and asked to help support a different project at the airport. It was the runway safety area project. And so that project came from my background, and it was airfield design and construction, which is what I did for most of my career. So it was right in my wheelhouse, but it is what I had thought I had graduated out of. So we were asked, this was an incredibly important project for the airport because we were closing 2 of our runways. We have 4 runways, and we're closing 2 of them for the entire summer to reconstruct these these runways to be in compliance with the new federal regulations. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that could happen to me right now. I'm just cutting my teeth on this terminal stuff. I'm getting these teams together. Things are starting to move. And now I got to go backward, take a step backwards. And being the team player, we both did it. And it was an amazing experience because that project actually was probably the most partnering intensive project I've been on. And, so you were the facilitator on that. So you probably remember the 2014 RSA days, but it basically involved 24-hour construction for the whole summer. And there was just so much pressure and just activity, and decisions needed to be made in minutes, not days. And we had to establish protocols and how to make decisions in the field and getting people to be able to do that and not wait till the next day because it was too late if it was the next day. And it turned out to be such a successful project, and we actually finished early, which was amazing. And it just goes to show, things you think are bad in your life sometimes turn out to be good. It was an amazing experience for me. And then when I got to come back to Terminal 1, and there was always fear, oh my God, am I not going to be able to go back to the Terminal 1 program? But we were allowed to go back. And when I came back, I was then assigned the big boarding area project at the time. And then a few months later, also the terminal project. So I went from, my 100 million in enabling projects to 2 billion in major projects. And that runway safety area project in that summer, I think really gave everyone in my management the confidence that we could pull this off and the confidence to assign me to the next thing. And it's sometimes that's life throws you curveballs and they lead you down a path you would have never gone down, and it becomes great.
That's awesome. Yes. Yes. And, think of the muscles the project management muscles you earned over that hard summer. It wasn't easy.
No.
So what's the very best advice you've ever gotten?
So it's interesting because there's so many different things. I would say one thing is surrounding yourself with people that know more about things, specific things than you do. Have the confidence to do that, because that's the only way you're going to be successful, especially on these highly complex, large projects. There is no one single person that can know everything. And you need to be willing to defer to other people and have people give you advice and tell you when you're wrong sometimes. You don't know everything. You got to know what you don't know, and allow others around you to really provide that framework for success. And I think that's one of the things we have on this program is we have so many people that know so many great things, and they're allowed to know and excel in those things.
That sounds like something we need in all parts of our life.
Yes.
Actually. Yeah. So what is your favorite piece of tech? What do you use that you find really helps you?
So I would say there's two things we're doing right now. One, we have a great on-site building inspection group that issues all of our permits. And we have so many projects going on at the airport. They've just been so busy, and they've been so great in getting things done on time. One of the tools we started using with them is Bluebeam, and allowing them to make their comments on drawing sets live that our teams could see live and start formulating what the responses are. So the process helps to shrink that back and forth process. And that's been a great tool for our teams to make progress. And for me personally, having my tablet, I use a Microsoft Surface, but having that with me at meetings throughout my day, it allows me to stay connected to things. It allows me to answer questions in the meeting. I can get on our network drive from our meeting, rooms and answer questions and get things resolved at the meeting. Because once I leave that meeting, I'm on to another meeting that's something totally different, and things get lost. So that has really helped me just keep things moving. So I don't have to be sitting around the office till 8 o'clock at night answering emails. So I can keep up to date, up to speed on things throughout the day.
That sounds like wise things for everyone that's listening here running projects. I'm just saying. So we always ask everybody to share a resource, a kind of a gift to all of us. It could be a book or anything that you think would be helpful, meaningful, has been meaningful to you.
So one of the things I do is I use Flipboard, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but it's an app you can use on your phone, and you can set what your interests are on it, and it'll give you snippets of different articles through numerous publications, and then you can click on and follow through and read any articles. But what it allows me to do is I have aviation at airports and hear about what other airports are doing around the world, but I also get to put fun stuff on there like hiking, great hikes to take. So it allows me a time to veg out, let my mind wander and do things, but then still keep in touch with what's happening in the world.
That sounds great. And we will put a link to that on the show notes for Kristin's episode here. So how can Construction Nation get a hold of you?
So I am I don't have a very big digital footprint, I will say that. I'm not on social media, but I am at the airport, and Sue knows me, and we're available for anyone who has any questions.
Yeah, so just give me a call or an email, and Sue at constructiondreamteam.com if anybody wants to get a hold of Kristin. I'll be happy to make the introduction. So what is your parting advice for Construction Nation? Something that people could start doing tomorrow to maybe think big, or a lesson that you've learned that you think would be important for them to implement? Particularly around the GMP.
Yeah. Well, we all have so many meetings and things. I think that meetings with purpose is incredibly important. And it's such a common sense, simple thing that so many of us miss so many times. What is the purpose of the meeting? What is the objective of the meeting? What are the action items for the meeting, and what are the deadlines for those? And in regards to GMP, that's exactly it. We had an agenda for the meetings. We knew the dates we wanted things done. And that's what made our time in there effective and successful. Otherwise, we've all been to the same meeting 12 times because the same conversation keeps happening. And it's just a waste of time.
It is. And I think that happens on most of the meetings. So what do you do to make sure that doesn't happen? Do you have somebody that leads the meeting? Who controls the agenda?
Different people, but making sure that the person that controls the agenda and facilitates the meeting isn't the same person that's trying to get the answers from the meeting, right? Because someone taking the notes has to be focused on taking the notes and not so much focused on what's being said and interacting. So that is a great thing. But action items from that is incredibly important. People need to know what they need to do and when they need to come back with what information.
So listen to that, Construction Nation. I think if we had better meetings, think how much better our life would be and how much better our jobs would be. So I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your know-how. And we'll look forward to celebrating the opening of the 9 gates coming up soon. And so just thank you so much, Kristin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sue. We're looking forward to celebrating also.
So this was a pretty great episode. I'm hoping that everyone will share this with your team, especially if you're working and maybe struggling to get a GMP, or if you're starting a new project where you've got to get to a GMP. I think there's a lot of brilliance in here. Learn from somebody who's already been there and done that. Share it with people. And it's easy to do with a podcast. All you have to do is push the button. It's pretty easy to share. So I hope you'll do that. And remember that every one of our guests shares their best resource, just like Kristin just shared about her great flipboard. So we have all of these accumulated in one place for you at constructiondreamteam.com/resources. They're all there. And as every episode, everyone shares something, you can just go there and just look at it. It's just amazing just to visit the page. It's pretty amazing, all this wisdom that has been collected from everyone and all these wonderful resources that are there ready for you at your fingertips. So do remember that Construction Dream Team drops every Monday morning at 4 a.m. And please join me next week when I will interview another industry leader or expert about the people side of construction so you can learn how to build your construction dream team. Thank you so much, Kristin, for coming, Kristin.
You're welcome, Sue. It was great.
And thanks everyone for joining us today, and we will catch you next time.